Imagine a predator. Height of a giraffe, wingspan of a single-engine plane, skull larger than a compact car, and it flies. No, we're not talking about mythological dragons or fantasy creatures. We're talking about something that really existed, something that hunted dinosaurs from the sky, something so monstrous that when paleontologists first found its bones, they thought they had discovered a new type of Tyrannosaur. But it wasn't. It was something much, much worse, and for 30 years, no one knew it existed. Welcome to the story of Hatzegopteryx, the most terrifying aerial predator that ever dominated Earth's skies, and possibly the largest flying animal that ever existed, larger even than the famous Quetzalcoatlus. 1970s, Romania. A team of paleontology students scours rock formations searching for fossils, and then they find something enormous. 2 bone fragments, a piece of skull, a gigantic humerus. So large that the first reaction was obvious. We found a theropod. Massive jaws? Check. Robust bones? Check. Colossal proportions? Check. It had to be a carnivorous dinosaur. But the bones told another story. When detailed analyses were done, the truth emerged. That wasn't a dinosaur, it was a pterosaur, a flying reptile. Except that no known pterosaur was that absurdly large and robust. And for 30 years, these bones remained unnamed, studied, measured, but not officially classified, until 2002, when it finally received its name, Hatzegopteryx thambema, the winged monster of the Hatzeg Basin. And monster was no exaggeration.
Let's talk numbers, because they're necessary to understand the scale of the absurdity. Wingspan, 10 to 12 meters. For context, a Cessna 172, one of the most common single-engine planes in the world, has a wingspan of 11 meters. Hatzegopteryx had wings larger than an airplane. Height in quadrupedal position, 5 meters, from ground level to the top of the head. Height of an adult giraffe. If you were standing next to it, your head would barely reach its shoulder. Skull, 2.5 meters long, larger than an entire polar bear, one of the largest skulls of any terrestrial animal that ever existed. And here's where it gets really bizarre. Unlike other pterosaurs, whose skulls were light, fragile, full of cavities to reduce weight, Hatzegopteryx's skull was solid, massive, robust, with enormous bony crests that served as anchor points for gigantic muscles. Why would a flying animal need such a heavy and strong skull? Because it didn't hunt fish, it didn't fish in rivers, it hunted dinosaurs. Hatzegopteryx was an anatomical aberration, and every detail of its body tells a story of violence. The neck, short, thick, extremely muscular. Biomechanical studies revealed something shocking. Hatzegopteryx's neck could withstand forces up to 10 times its own body weight. This isn't fisherman's anatomy, it's biological pile driver anatomy. The skull, beyond the colossal size, the internal structure was hollow but not fragile, full of pneumatic chambers connected to the respiratory system, like reinforced styrofoam. Light enough to fly, strong enough to crush bones. The wings, massive wingspan, but they weren't just for gliding elegantly. Wing bones also contained hollow and reinforced structures, literally built like high-strength structural foam. The jaw, powerful, robust, designed to pierce and tear. It wasn't a thin beak for fishing, it was a weapon of destruction. But here's the question no one can answer definitively. How could something so gigantic and heavy manage to fly?
For a long time, paleontologists debated, did Hatzegopteryx really fly, or was it too large and stuck on the ground like giant ostriches? The evidence says it flew. The wings were fully developed, bone structure identical to other known flying azhdarchids. There were no signs of atrophy or loss of function. But how? The answer lies in extreme biological engineering. Hollow but rigid skull, massive weight reduction without loss of strength, pneumatic bones, air sac system throughout the skeleton, styrofoam-like structure. wing bones built like ultralight composite. Even so, takeoff wasn't simple. Current theory, Hatzegopteryx took off using all 4 limbs, essentially jumping into the air with explosive force like giant bats do. Once airborne, old studies suggested it could fly long distances without stopping. But recent research disagrees. New biomechanical models indicate that, due to body weight, prolonged flights were impossible. Hatzegopteryx probably flew in short bursts, took off, glided, landed. It wasn't a long-distance traveler, it was an aerial ambush hunter, and the territory it patrolled, it was perfect for this hunting style. 66 million years ago, Europe wasn't a continent, it was an archipelago, dozens of islands scattered across shallow seas, and one of them, Hatzeg Island, in what is now Romania, was Hatzegopteryx's kingdom. Island size? Comparable to modern Ireland. Isolation? More than 300 kilometers of deep ocean in all directions. And on this isolated island, something bizarre happened. Insular dwarfism. You know when animals get trapped on islands and evolve to smaller sizes due to limited resources? It happened here with dinosaurs. The inhabitants of Hatzeg Island, Magyarosaurus, dwarf titanosaur, 6 meters instead of 20 plus, Telmatosaurus, reduced hadrosaur, Struthiosaurus, miniaturized ankylosaur, Zalmoxes, compact ornithopod, Elopteryx, small unidentified theropod. These dinosaurs were miniature versions of continental giants, and Hatzegopteryx, it did the opposite. Without large terrestrial predators competing for food, it grew absurdly. It filled the apex predator terrestrial niche, insular gigantism. It was as if the island had inverted the rules. Dinosaurs became small, and the pterosaur became colossal. And these dwarf dinosaurs, they were on the menu. So how exactly did Hatzegopteryx hunt? Hatzegopteryx takes off from a cliff or clearing, glides over the dense subtropical forest. Sharp eyes scan the ground. It locates a juvenile Magyarosaurus, maybe 3 meters long, separated from the group, vulnerable. It descends, wings folded, almost vertical movement, like an eagle diving, explosive landing, jaws open, and then it attacks. The beak pierces the base of the skull or neck, instant death. Or worse, Hatzegopteryx uses the skull as a club, repeatedly striking the victim until bones fragment. It wasn't elegant, it was brutal, and it worked. Hatzeg Island wasn't just a hunting ground, it was a subtropical paradise. In the late Cretaceous, Europe was much warmer than today. No polar ice caps, shallow, warm seas. Hatzeg Island climate, humid subtropical, dense forests of conifers and angiosperms, abundant tropical vegetation, numerous rivers and streams, consistently high temperatures. It was like a prehistoric version of Southeast Asia, and in the middle of this lush forest, dwarf dinosaurs grazed nervously, always looking to the sky, because death came from above. But every paradise has an end. 66 million years ago, an asteroid 10 kilometers in diameter pierced Earth's atmosphere at 20 kilometers per second. Impact: Yucatan Peninsula, Mexico. The explosion was the equivalent of billions of nuclear bombs. 76% of all species on Earth were wiped out within months. Non-avian dinosaurs, extinct. Pterosaurs, extinct. Hatzegopteryx, the largest aerial predator that ever existed, extinct. Hatzeg Island was silenced. The subtropical forests burned. The rivers dried up. And the sky, which for millions of years belonged to winged giants, became empty.
Today, all that remains of Hatzegopteryx are fragments. Pieces of skull, a fossilized humerus, broken vertebrae. But these fragments tell an epic story. The story of how an aerial predator became the king of a lost island. The story of how giant dinosaurs shrank while a pterosaur exploded in size. The story of an ecosystem that defied all rules. and the story of the largest flying animal that ever dominated Earth's skies. Larger than Quetzalcoatlus, larger than any modern bird, larger than any bat, any giant carboniferous insect, any winged creature that ever existed. Hatzegopteryx was the absolute apex of flying creatures, and we almost never knew it existed. And so, the sky became empty. The largest aerial predator that ever existed, an animal with the wingspan of an airplane, height of a giraffe, and skull larger than a polar bear, was erased in a matter of weeks. 66 million years, enough time for almost all evidence of its existence to disappear. If those Romanian students in the 1970s hadn't found those bone fragments, if paleontologists hadn't realized that those theropod bones were actually from a pterosaur, we would never have known Hatzegopteryx. If now you can't stop imagining an airplane-sized pterosaur hunting dwarf dinosaurs on a lost island, you already know what to do. Leave that like now. Not for me, but because this type of content, serious paleontology, detailed research, stories about creatures that 99% of people will never know, only reaches more people when you show the algorithm it's worthwhile. And each like says, I want more content about forgotten prehistoric giants. So hit that button, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell. Until the next video, where the impossible past becomes reality.